One. I think we're live.
Awesome.
Are you live?
I am live, yeah.
We are experimenting with this MXL 9900 microphone that only apparently, it's not very diverse. It only picks up one track and one voice, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's the difference between there's like a studio microphone, dynamic microphone, condenser microphone, or whatever they're called, and they all do different stuff. So like some stuff would be for far away, closer.
Right.
That's where you'd have like a shotgun mic. There's like
They use those in like movies, I bet, right?
yeah. So like shotgun mic, like it sounds, would be if you're far away and it's super directional.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise,
So I would be like just facing the general direction of the mic and speaking, and then it'll pick up my voice from wherever.
yeah, like like a boom guy.
No. Oh yes, the guy.
The
Yeah,
guy
sure.
holding
Yeah.
the boom guy basically his whole job is to point that shotgun mic toward one specific actor, and then it's supposed to be directional enough that it doesn't pick up another actor, and that's where you can get in one scene you have multiple microphone people all picking up
Oh, it's so interesting.
individual audio tracks.
And then at the same time, they probably have different camera people.
Yeah.
With direct shots on the people's faces, and then that's when you do all the cuts for the
Yeah,
conversation
exactly.
and stuff like that.
I do always wonder when they have TV shows, like sometimes, like let's say you were making a short film yourself and you only have one camera, you would have to record every scene twice.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have kind of organic looking interactions.
Either that, or you'd make them. There is an art to the continuous shot. Cheers, dude. It's not as satisfying without the click, but you know.
Dude, I haven't had a Corona since.
Honestly, I should have given you a lime, but I don't even know if we have in the house.
Nah, that's okay.
Right now.
Since like year in Israel, before I even liked beer.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, we're going to Tel Aviv. We're going to sit on the beach
and have Coronas.
and have Coronas.
Yeah.
So now it tastes like the Tel Aviv beach to me.
I used to love Tuborgs, dude. You know
what that is?
It's a red beer. It's a red bottle, and it's a dark bottle. And the cool thing about the Israeli beers was that the tops have that little thing where you pull off. So instead of needing a bottle opener, or instead of it being a twist off, it like has a little like this thing, like this, an actual thing, and you pull it. And like like the cans of tuna, instead of you don't need so it has that. They have that on top of all the bottles, so you don't need a bottle opener to drink them. You just pop them open like that.
Why is that not a thing everywhere?
I don't know. It's brilliant. I mean, I think it's a Dutch beer, but it's
Awesome.
So it's definitely not an Israel creation, but it's really cool.
Did you have something specific you wanted to talk about? Because I have some questions for you.
No, let's talk about your questions, dude.
All right, so here are my questions. Basically, I forget if I told you, I'm starting next month as an entrepreneurship teacher. I've been laid off for like 8 months from software engineering, and I often think about how much of the skills that I use day to day did I learn in college or in school. And I thought that you'd be good to talk to about that because, you work with your dad doing sort of sales stuff and
like nothing to do with creative writing.
Also, yeah. Well, so right. My question to you is your day to day too. How much did you pick up in formal education? And that could also just be having to do with like I studied computer science in school. Maybe I should have studied something more creative.
You think so? I think you're creative yourself, though. So like to learn. I think that you can either look at education like a way of, like if you have a natural inclination, to take the inclination and refine it and like sharpen it and make it better in a particular, find your own way, like your own niche of making, like being really good at whatever you already have a natural tendency towards. Or you can use education as a tool to become more well-rounded in something that you're not naturally inclined towards. And so you can hopefully the things you're passionate about, you invest your own time in anyway, right? So like you almost hope that you are self-educated about the things that you pick up more easily, and then what you would probably need some kind of education for, or classwork or teamwork or whatever for, would be something that you would not have as easy of a time pursuing by yourself.
That's exactly why I went into software engineering in college, because I knew I'm never going to learn it on my own, as opposed to the graphic softwares. Well, it helped a lot, like having Ari, where he taught me Photoshop, he taught me video editing and stuff like that. But my argument to you then would be, I agree. Like, I think there is space in between people who become really good at something. I think overlaps a lot with people who are passionate about something.
Yeah, definitely. But there are plenty of people that are really good at things they don't care about.
Yes, right. And
that's because I think that in order to be better than, I would say like 80% or 80, I think would be 85% of people at any given discipline, you probably just have to have like 10 or 15 more percent more disciplined than most of other people. So like
Yeah.
if you read like a couple more books or do a couple more articles, like bring yourself. It's all about, I think, discipline and being able to do something that you don't like doing for a little bit longer than most people are willing to tolerate.
Yeah.
You know, but and then once you do that, you clear like a massive barrier, right? And then like there's like, let's say the last 15 or 20% people that you're not as good at, and those are the people that are like the higher ups in whatever industry you're looking at, right? So in your case in particular, if you're learning coding, it would, like, I think most people probably drop out,
Yeah.
like you would need like just a little bit more discipline than what most people need in order to get that first job or to get your foot in that door. And
Yeah.
then once, and in order to really excel, you need that, you need to push really hard to get past those other 20% of people. And that's kind of where your passion might have to come in, where like you wouldn't. I will personally, I'm burned out of doing like a job that I don't like doing. I'm like I have a very hard time imagining doing more of that for the next rest of my life. Um, and so that's why I'm like pursuing other things that either that are meaningful to me on the side that provide alleviation for that challenge of like doing something I don't really care much about or feel very passionate about. But I don't think that's the ideal way to go about it. Hopefully, if you can, what you do is I would start up something on the side, or do enough on the side that because I'm enthusiastic about it, it would build up over time. Then I could eventually quit what I don't love and do what I do love full time. But I think that that's a luxury that a lot of people don't have, and so you need to have. There's a lot of hours in a day,
I agree.
and I don't think that people necessarily use their time as well as they could. I was just reading in Ancient Generation, the Jonathan Haidt book. He said that I think 1 out of 7 girls, as of 2015, so I'm sure the numbers only went up. 1 out of 7 teenage girls spend over 40 hours a week on social media.
That's
That's a
insane.
full-time job, dude.
Yeah.
People spend literally a full-time job, and they're in school too, presumably, right? So you're in
Yeah. Well, a
school.
lot of it is also like you scroll during class.
Yeah, well, whatever it may be. But the point is that, and by the way, how many friends do we have that are accountants, right?
Yeah.
That have a lot of hours in the day in between busy seasons where they could, ostensibly be learning something new or
Yeah.
working on something new for themselves, or they do what most people end up doing, which is scrolling on Twitter, Instagram, during their free time during the day.
Yeah. Well, that's a tough thing. Is I think finding balance for yourself. Like you need to have time to take a breath,
Hmm.
but then also, yeah, one of my biggest pet peeves are people who make excuses of I don't have enough time because I'm like, dude, show me your screen time,
Yeah.
and then tell me. Like I have friends that are very hard to hang out with. I'm like, oh, I can't, this, that, whatever. I'm like, dude, you show me your screen time. You tell me, like, you really need that Friday morning
Yeah.
that you need to get all that work done so you can't come for a whole weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people are like that.
Yeah.
And I think that is certain. So it's two things. I think it's partially laziness. I think that because we feel connected, we feel like we could connect to people. However, we feel like being comfortable and lazy, that we are less incentivized to get up and go do actual real life experience things with friends, right? Because like if I can text you, or I could FaceTime you, and I'm sitting on my
hate that,
couch,
though.
and like, okay, I don't really feel like coming over now.
I hate the texting and FaceTiming.
Yeah,
It sucks.
yeah. I've been. It's hard to do. I'm losing. I have less patience for it. As I used to primarily communicate that way, and as I got into my 20s, I got less and less patient with it,
Yeah.
and you don't like it doesn't feel as real.
When Nicole and I started dating, it was pretty much all texting.
It's the worst
She
thing.
always hated texting, and I was a big texter, like always a big texter.
Yeah.
Um,
So make sure we're recording. Yeah.
no, yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
And we talk about now how happy we are that we quickly transitioned out of that.
Sure.
Now we FaceTime, and it's a step up, but I hate FaceTime.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking forward to
Being married.
Yeah, well, just like because I think there's when you're on maybe FaceTime is a little different, but especially if you're texting or you're on the phone or whatever, your pretty much complete connection is talking. And I kind of just want to hang out. I like being in her presence.
Mhm.
Like she can do her own thing, I can do my own thing. But
Right.
we're around each
Shared
other.
company is a big difference.
Exactly.
Totally.
And also, yeah, like I think it's a lot easier to hear somebody ramble about their day when it's like I'm also prepping dinner at the same time, as opposed to I have to sit. If I can't be on my computer because it's rude,
Right.
and I'll get distracted.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited to just get.
That's already one step ahead of most people, by the way, including myself. Like, if I'm hanging out with Rachel and she's talking to me about like what her day was like, and you text me, I will probably be distracted
Yeah,
by
like that's
your
bad.
text over my wife, which is not a great thing, and it's something that she happens to be very good about it. She's really good at like putting her phone on airplane mode, or
It's awesome.
just putting it away and forgetting about it, and like that's the end of it. Um, and I justify the fact that it's my job to like
Yeah,
always be around to answer calls, but I could be on my phone probably 40% less than I am
yeah,
easily,
yeah,
and I'm definitely addicted to Twitter,
yeah.
which is a really bad place to be.
It's so funny to hear the stuff people are so into. Like, I was never on Twitter. Like, dude, people are into Pinterest, Tumblr.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't know. What have you been drawn to?
I don't have any of the social media apps on my phone. That doesn't keep me from just going to it on the browser.
Hmm.
But you can't really scroll reels.
It makes a big difference, by the way,
Yeah,
for sure, because they're so clunky
yeah, very
on
clunky.
browsers.
I also like, I don't follow anybody other than my friends and
Yeah.
like NHL.
Hmm.
So I open it up. I'm like, dude, there is nothing. I found, especially with Facebook, because I just like will go on Facebook
No
to
one posts on
see.
Facebook anymore, dude.
It's 100% fake news, where it's like an AI generated image of someone famous being like, "Did you know this about their past?" And the comments are all in uproar, except for the few that are like, "Dude, this is completely not true."
It's
And
crazy.
then I'll
People
Google it
comment
every
that
now
though.
and then. Yes.
People comment, "This is just a bad post."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. People will be like, "Dude, guys, like, stop believing all this stuff." And then you just have to Google it. And I think one of my biggest things is, especially in today's age, if you hear something from someone else or you read it online or whatever it is, before you walk around and tell other people, double check it.
Yeah,
Or like if I share a fact or factoid with somebody, I always follow it up with, I think I could be wrong.
yeah, definitely. That's really important. The problem is that there's been such a breakdown and lack of trust in any kind of authority that it's
Yeah.
almost impossible. Like, I think now more than ever, I think everyone's just coming to terms with the fact that like every story they read is subjective, and
Yeah.
it kind of just has to like you just have to be willing to embrace or not embrace or trust or not trust, and like that's the end of it. And I think a lot less people are trusting now than ever before. So on one hand, it's good because it doesn't allow super prejudiced narratives to really dominate for the most part. On the other hand, it's really bad because then you really don't know what to believe or not. Like I don't know I never know what to believe when I read any kind of news, or like
Yeah.
I never know what to think.
Yeah.
Like I have such a hard time.
You always felt that way?
um no, no, I was never really engaged in the news growing up. I was never political. I was never following the
Same.
news. I never cared. I The first time I started caring about politics, my family is conservative, but without pushing anything. Like they never ever talked about it. They were just like, we just kind of want to be left alone, live our own lives, and like, you know, and they were pretty thoughtless about being conservative. Like they were just like, that's what we are, and that's what we do, and like that's it.
Which is interesting because most Jews, I think, are Democrat.
So, but I don't know about most Orthodox Jews.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
I
Actually,
think,
yeah, you're probably right.
and Orthodox Jews, I think, are 2% of
Jews.
Jews, which are like 2% of the population.
Yeah.
So like you're talking
Yeah.
the tiniest fraction
Yeah.
of
And then we all
people.
live in New Jersey and New York, so the vote doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like, yeah.
Right. And a lot of times, my understanding is a lot of the Orthodox Jews will vote Democrat because there's a lot of tax benefits that they get from having big families, generally speaking, or food stamps and stuff like that. A lot of times they won't legally get married necessarily, and so if you're registering as a single mom with 8 kids, you could
Wow.
get a lot of benefits if you vote Democrat. Historically,
Yeah.
because it's generally protecting, and as you probably should, and protect, the people that need the help, that need help. I don't know if it should be done necessarily by the government. Anyway, I was never really political until college, and I was exposed to, as a creative
We all
writing.
get exposed in college.
What?
We all get exposed
You get
in college.
exposed,
Yeah.
yeah, it is crazy. So, but I think me more than a lot of my other friends, because
Yeah.
most of my friends were in business school or engineering school, where they didn't really think or care about, they didn't really talk about politics very much, or if they did, they would tend to be a little bit more to the right if they were business oriented, and creative writing literature is as liberal as a
Yes.
degree as you get. So I was kind of getting blasted by, and this for the first time in my life being exposed to any of these conversations or perspectives or anything like that. And some of the things made sense. A lot of it didn't to me. I found a lot of it to be a little silly. And then COVID happened, and I was the only person in my family. Me and my dad were the only people that thought my family should take the vaccine. I was like, listen, there's no way that billions of people are being lied to. There's no way.
How do you feel about it now?
So whenever anyone asks me, I say, with the information I had at the time, I would do it again.
Yeah.
Being where I was at that point in my life, with the information I had, I would do the same thing again. If it happened today, I would not do it. If I knew what I know today, or heard what I heard today, or listened, anything,
Yeah.
I'm a lot more disillusioned. So,
Dude, I had 3 vaccines for COVID, and I've had COVID 4 times.
mm-hmm.
My brain is probably mush at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. That's my argument. And I remember arguing with my mom at the table for a long time, being like, "This is just a stupid conspiracy theory. You think that billion people are making things up?" My mom was like, "Why not?" I'm like, "You're so close-minded. It's crazy." you know. And so after that, and then when that kind of all like fell apart, I think that opened a can of worms for everyone and for everything. Like,
Nobody trusts anything.
no one trusts anything anymore. Like,
which is good, I think.
it's better.
Yeah.
It's better, but then you have the problem of not knowing where to get any kind of information from. Do you trust the CDC? Do you trust, the WHO? Do you trust the government to tell you what's a good thing to do or not?
Well, that's probably the next wave, but like step 1 is everything you hear, question, and then step 2 is how do you uncover the truth?
Right.
I used to be so proud. We switched from Spotify to Apple. We got Apple One. We started getting Apple News Plus, and I'm like, sick. Now I can be informed. I can read the news and whatever. Then October 7th happened.
Okay.
And I start seeing basically, like as a Jew, somebody like born in Israel, Israeli citizen, you have a certain perspective on the war, and then you see how the media reports it in a different way, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
And then that makes you think like, all right, well, how can I trust anything reported about anything else in the world if I know that this one topic that I care about and have a stance on is being reported to completely opposite?
Yeah.
And now I don't look at Apple News.
Yeah, yeah. And in terms of that, so a lot of my skepticism actually has come to the surface with that regard too, because I do think that there's a lot more murkiness than, I don't think it's black and white. And I think that's what a lot of people like to do or like to say, it's just one thing is right and one thing's wrong. And also, I think that it's a huge problem that like the people equate Jews or Israel with the Israeli government.
Yeah.
Which is like saying you're an American, so you have to agree with like everything Joe Biden or Donald Trump says.
Yes.
And like we know that how false that is. Like that's so not the case, But what you could say is like you love America, like you love like whatever the leadership, whoever it is, whatever ups or downs or or morally, and I don't know anything that happens there. I really don't. I think that Israel is definitely a morally by far morally superior. Like you can't even question the two. But I think that politics are politics, and I think that Israel also knows that everything that they do is like
scrutinized.
Is so heavily scrutinized by everyone that I think that before they do anything or say anything or any action, they think 100 times before saying or doing anything.
I feel like maybe, but at the same time, when you compare the media war, which was basically a whole front of the war,
that was crazy.
But
and
they
so
suck
at
at
it.
Yeah, so bad at I'm like, dude, like just get some like hot Israelis on TikTok making like a "Did you know?" videos.
Have you heard?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't get why they're not doing that.
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me, dude. Because it could really pick up a lot of traction.
That's what I think.
Yeah, they're terrible at PR.
It seems to me they're kind of like, well, you all hate us anyway. I don't think they are either.
I think that they're much more rough and tumble, and it's so funny. I saw
because they're not a first world country.
I saw a post on Twitter like I've never seen, and it's from Israeli. I've never seen a place so idiotic and so brilliant like Israel at the same time. Like they are groundbreaking in certain things, and then like they couldn't get deodorant right. They can't like they
Yeah,
all
you
reek
can't.
like
Yeah,
you know,
Amazon doesn't work. Someone was telling me over the weekend that there's this group of Israelis who made a startup, sold it to someone. Maybe they became millionaires.
yeah.
Then they started this new thing called Wiz, which Google wants to buy for like $30 billion, and they're like, nah, we're gonna take it public. And how just like, dude, there's
I can
Israelis.
see them not wanting to making the decision to not want to be under Google's umbrella or
Well, yeah, but
like not wanting
you could
Google
take
to be
$10
their owner.
billion, or just be like, let's see what happens.
Yeah, but that's part of. I bet that's a lot to do with the confidence that they have in themselves. Shabaloo, hi.
He's humongous.
What's going on? How's your nap? Want to go to Mama?
There we are.
Little guy came out for a minute. Want to come sit?
I like how he points.
Last time I was recording an episode with Rocco's uncle,
Yeah.
Avi, and we were smoking cigars sitting on the deck, and he came out. He woke up from a nap, and he just takes a fistful of ash and just pops it in his mouth. And I'm like, no! And he guzzled down like half a bottle of water after. Like you could tell he was so uncomfortable. It was so sad.
That's how you learn.
But full circle,
That's awesome.
I don't know that. I really think that it depends in terms of your education, what you're trying to accomplish or not.
It's like a king just gets carried around.
Yeah, dude,
And he
especially
points.
with that man bun.
Yeah, the man, but he points where he wants to go.
And we just take him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I used to feel bad for him. I used to be like, oh, he just gets left anywhere he wants to go. He doesn't have a choice. But like, that guy has us around his finger. Like, there's no
Yeah.
chance that he doesn't get whatever he wants most of the time.
Yeah, we were talking about like with babies and with dogs. You just tell them get in the car. Like when we were in Seattle, we tell Blue get in the car. She's like okay, and then
Yeah.
we drive for an hour and a half. We get out. We're like all right, we're gonna hike 13 miles now, and she's like okay.
Yeah.
Not in the discussion.
Ari's kind of like that. I feel like Ari
Yeah.
doesn't mind doing anything.
Right.
That's one of my favorite things about hanging out, about like being roommates, was like anything that you were down for at any point in the day.
Yeah.
Like he 90% of the time he'd be like, okay, like you just
That's
do
why I
it.
like going to Seattle because I think it was my first summer. We did all this driving and hiking and camping, whatever.
When I lived there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we went, and I didn't know the plan. I just wake up, be like, all right, like, am I packing pants? Am I packing a raincoat?
Yeah. What are we doing today?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was great. That was a great summer. Summer there was awesome.
Yeah, it's beautiful there.
Yeah. What happened to your bike? Does Ari still have it?
Yeah, he has a bike. I rode it over a bunch of sticks and the tires popped.
How's
But it
the
still
battery?
works. I think it's fine.
Like you haven't found that it's been 4 or 5 years. You haven't found that the batteries.
Well, I think an electric bike goes like 40 miles on a charge usually. So even after 5 years, if it goes 15 miles, it's
Still
like,
fine.
yeah, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had a question for you. You were talking about how you have a full-time job and then you do a side hustle. And then you
Teach.
said,
And now this.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you said how a lot of people don't have that liberty. And my question is,
No, they do.
yeah,
They just don't. I think it comes down to discipline, number one, and number two. And I think this is far more. What do you call it? It makes it creates the bar of entry, makes it a lot harder to enter. It's often overwhelming to start any kind of hustle. Like you don't really know where to start or what to do. Like
Yeah.
what I like about teaching or podcasting or whatever is that, or even writing, is that I get up and all you got to do is write and click send, and like you're done. I don't edit this. I don't do anything. You know, I literally record it for better or for worse. And for now, and the reason why is because I think that most people, first of all, I think if people pick too niche of a podcast idea,
yeah,
or any kind of journalist idea that you want to do for a long time, any kind of media form, if you pick something niche, you'll probably run out of topics relatively quickly. And I think that my understanding is that you need to be consistent for a really long period of time in order to, like, it's not hard to get discovered. It's just keeping it up for long enough to get discovered. And so if I pick something, and I've tried this before, if I pick something like talking about particular songs or music or movies or anything like that, I'll either lose interest after a couple of months, like I'll just burn out,
yeah,
or I'll just run out of things. Like it's a lot of work. Like it requires a lot of information, consuming a lot of information, remembering it, spitting it back, putting in your own words, and I think that makes it a lot harder to be consistent enough to be successful, right? So
Something I liked a lot. I was watching a video about how Tame Impala made "The Less I Know, the Better," and how he kind of made this bass line and it sat for a while, whenever it was. And he's talking about how any song he makes, if for him to finish it, it has to be his favorite song in the world for at least a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, if you're writing music, you need to be in a position where something can inspire you, be your favorite, like ever, and then you kind of let it go. And so I feel like with a podcast, you have to have a topic where you can just become super interested in a certain topic and be like, this is what I want to talk about. But then you can always pivot and have it still be relevant.
Right, which is why I'm keeping this vague on purpose. Like, I'm keeping this vague on purpose because I don't really care where it goes. I care that it's thoughtful. I care that it is generally keeps a positive tone that people can relate to and feels like it enhances their their time spent. Like, like if they listen to it and they think this is just a great way to just hear a positive interaction and you pick up from it. I think that people, I genuinely believe that if you and I were having this conversation and five people in my siblings or Rachel's family or your family are sitting here just observing our conversation, they would walk away with something a little bit more positive in their repertoire and in their lives, and that's something I care about a lot. Is I've always been driven to have a positive impact on other people, and that's why all the things I've ever wanted to do, which was writing, getting into film, teaching, music, all these things, what they have in common is I want to have a positive impact on everyone.
Yeah, I mean, probably anybody you pass on the street has at least something to offer you as far as outlook on life or a piece of advice.
Sure.
And then I guess the challenge to you is if you're going to bring somebody on a podcast, like let's say for me, what do I have that I could offer you or people listening that's a positive outlook and actually, like, there's a difference between, I feel like, listening to a decent conversation and also coming away with some insight.
Yeah.
And so how do you decide and then pull from any of your guests what might be helpful?
So there's a couple of ways I do it. If I know you well, then I can know certain things to kind of steer the conversation towards, right? Like my friend Michael Steinberg, he and I met in a screenplay writing class in Binghamton.
I didn't know you took, I feel like I knew you took screenplay. Yeah,
dude, that was a great class.
I was gonna ask you how you write a screenplay because I feel like it's hard.
It's so hard.
Yeah,
it's hard. It's hard until you get the hang of it, and then it becomes easy. But you have to relearn how to write because you're writing dialogue that has to sound like people are talking in real life.
yeah.
And people are so used to getting drilled to learn how to write properly.
Well, I used to think, people always talk about, oh, the book is so much better than the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think, like, why do they even need a screenplay? Just take the book and have them say those lines. And it's like, well, that's not how a screenplay works.
Well, it's partially how it works. A lot of times you'll find, like, if you read a book out loud, my younger brother already, he learned how to, because he's the youngest, and most of the time, family wasn't around to engage with him because
Sucks.
kids are because we were all growing up or we're in school or we're getting married or we're in college or we're working or whatever it is, and he loves to read, so he'll read these young adult or children's fantasy books, Percy Jackson and Harry Potter and whatever, and he'll pick up expressions and phrases. And we'll be sitting at the table and he'll spit something out that was like, what? Who talks like that? Like he's learning his etiquette from a book.
Yes.
And that becomes a problem. So part of the job is to make it, I guess, a little bit more realistic. That's what made Seinfeld so great, was the fact that there was no plot, but the conversation was so real. And if the writing was so spot on because it was exactly conversations that people would actually have in real life.
Yeah.
A lot of times you watch a movie, it's like, so you're the bad guy. Why are you doing what you're doing? It's like, when I was 10, my dad was killed in front of me. And dude, no one talks like that, man. So why are you doing this? It's like, screw you, man. Because I'm going to rule the world. And you punch him in the face and it's over, I think there's a lot. So Sopranos did that really well. Entourage did that really well.
Yeah, Entourage is the best.
It's my favorite show, dude.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's so funny. You know the story. You know the story of Rachel when we were dating.
No.
No? Oh, it's so funny. We were dating. She's more religious than I am. Yeah, let's say more religious, or a little bit more disciplined than I am in terms of being aware of what she's exposing herself to and trying to keep things relatively appropriate. Because there is the idea, and I apply this more to music than to media, like to shows and movies. But what you surround yourself with and the media that you consume has a huge impact on the way that you think and the way that you express yourself and behave.
Yeah, I mean, I think even for adults, even if you're like, oh, I know that social media influences me, and so I make a note to not be influenced, like,
Is
you
influencing
can't
you
help it.
too,
Yeah,
for sure.
exactly.
Yeah, and so I first noticed this in high school because I used to listen to a lot of rap, and I found that the way
Where
that
you're just walking around like, fuck.
yeah, and
Really?
I didn't end up like. I mean, I wasn't acting like a crazy person. I wasn't acting like these rappers. I'm still like a wholesome, nerdy dude. But
At a private Jewish school in Paramus.
yeah, exactly. But I did find that the way that I was thinking, the way that I was talking and expressing myself was very different, and so I made the conscious decision to stop.
Yeah.
So and expose and choose to expose myself to more wholesome or thought provoking or something with a little bit more depth and meaning to whatever I was going to expose myself to. And so, anyways, but it doesn't apply apparently to the things I watch.
Is it raining?
It's drizzling. I'll move if it picks up. So we're dating. We're engaged actually, and and her family's supposed to surprise her for a bridal shower, and it's my job to keep her out of the house for 6 hours while they're preparing. I don't have 6 hours worth of plans at this point, right? So like we're like let's go out to the mall. Like go to the mall and like, oh, it's Barnes and Noble. Let's go to Barnes and Noble. And I'm desperately trying to come up with like things to keep her busy. And she apparently, at a certain point, like in the parking lot, she's like, I know they're getting the bridal shower ready. You don't have to do this. And I'm like, I don't know what to say. Like I was just like speechless. So anyway, so I'm showing her this scene from Entourage where Ian and Sloane try anal for the first time, and
You pulled it up in the parking lot of Barnes and Noble.
yeah, and I'm like, oh, this is a great scene. Like it's so funny. I don't even remember how we started talking about it, and then and like how uncomfortable they both were and how unpleasant the whole experience was. And then she's already in the bed when she looks at me. She goes, "This is what you watch." This is the kind of show that you watch. This is the kind of television my fiance, like watches like on his free time.
You're like, yeah, dude, Entourage is awesome.
And I'm like, yeah. And then whatever, she's mad at me, and she's like, okay, well, you're not watching this one. We're married. We're not watching this when we have kids around. Blah blah. Blah. I'm like,
Yeah.
fine, we're not doing it.
What's your kid's favorite show?
So I'm sad. I'm thinking that yeah, right. I wish. So I'm sad, and I'm thinking I'm never gonna watch my favorite show again, and I never bring it up again. So now we're engaged. This is beginning of our engagement. So another couple of months we're married, and then like maybe 6 months into our marriage, we just moved into our house. And I'm having a really crappy day, and she was out of the house, and I don't remember what happened or why I was in such a bad mood, but I was like, you know what? No one's here. I'm watching an episode of Entourage. So I put on like a random episode from season 2.
Season 2 is a good season.
It's a great season.
Dude, if you're feeling bad and you put on like season 6 of Entourage.
Yeah, where Vince goes wrong, dude. Yeah, dude, that's awful.
Yeah,
it's so upsetting.
I skip it when I rewatch.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you could skip his scenes even because there's still plenty of good stuff going on.
Yeah, that's true.
So I watched season 2. It has to do, I think, where he gets cast for Aquaman. By the way,
watching that right now.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Sundance, all that.
Yeah. Also, Doug Ellen is a freaking prophet because, like, I think out of like let's say the 10 or 12 movies that Vince is cast. They've been made in real life, like over the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Like he hit the nail on the head. He did Gatsby, he did Aquaman,
yes.
and he did everything, dude. And they're like, yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal is gonna replace you. Like what? So
it's awesome.
So anyway, so she walks in, and I'm like, oh no, and I'm like, I'm acting
like you're
cool.
hiding.
So I'm acting cool.
Yeah.
So I'm like, she's like, what are you watching? I'm like, oh, it's a funny show. Come sit down. So she sits down, she watches, she starts laughing. She goes, oh, this is great. I'm like, yeah. I was like, you wanna watch it with me? Like we could start the show from the beginning. It'd be like our show. And she's like, sure. So I don't tell her what it's called. I don't tell her anything. We binge the show in like a week and a half. Like we watched the entire show. We don't do anything but watch Entourage. Like,
and so what happened when she got to that episode?
So we got to that episode. She looks at me. She goes, "Is this the movie that I'm saying? Is this the show I got mad at you for watching?" I'm like, maybe. Like, isn't it so good? She's like, yeah, it's so good. So then we finish Entourage.
Yeah.
And she looks at me, and at this point, actually, I think she's expecting. She goes, "Okay, you're not allowed to watch this anymore." I'm like, you can't sit on the couch for a week and a half straight, watch Entourage, and then tell me I can't watch it anymore. So, just a couple of weeks ago, we're back at my parents' house for the summer, and I finished a jog. It's like 11 o'clock at night, and everyone's in bed, and I'm sitting down and watching Entourage. Oh, she comes downstairs while I'm stretching, and I'm like, "You want to watch something with me?" She's like, "Yeah, sure." I'm like, "I'm putting on Entourage." She's like, "No." I'm like, "Okay." So I put it on anyway. She's like, "What? You're gonna put it on anyway?" I'm like, "Yeah, you don't have to watch if you don't want to watch." So, so she was fine. She sits down on the couch. She goes, "This is really good. Can we watch another episode?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's watch another episode." So, the point is that's one of the best shows ever. It's
awesome,
it's definitely addicting.
So
It's so
good.
contagious. It's so it's so vibrant.
Yeah.
It's excellent.
Well, it's also similar to a podcast. I think also like a sitcom is like this friend group that you're watching but you're not a part of or
Yes,
whatever.
yes.
But Entourage is just like
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Yeah. And actually, Jeremy Piven was during the whole Me Too movement.
Yeah.
Someone tried Me Tooing him,
hmm
and he's like,
I think it ruined his career.
"No, it didn't." But because he responded, he's like, "You think that I'm Ari Gold?"
Yes.
He goes, "You don't know anything about me.
Yes.
You don't know what I'm like in real life. You don't know." Like, everyone thinks because he is the actor of Ari Gold that like that's his personality.
Yes.
He's this laid back. He does stand up comedy. Loves mushroom. Like takes mushrooms with Mike Tyson. Like super chill, super laid back guy. He's like, and he challenged her and he pushed her. He's like, give me any evidence. Give me any kind of text, anything that we've ever interacted with one another. And she couldn't do it. And he was like, like you just think of me as this guy. I kind of think that happened to Kevin Spacey, actually, underrated, because I think that he got canceled right after House of Cards, and I bet that people equated
But
him.
he plays villains
Yeah,
all the time, except for that. I think he said like, "Yeah, I am."
he did. So he said like I was pushy, like I was like that. But he's like, but find someone that isn't pushy in Hollywood. Find someone that isn't.
Hollywood's like a weird place.
Hollywood's awful, dude.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, that's I think also is it's probably more fun to play a villain, but people will love you more generally if you just play a lovable character.
Yeah, and the problem is that people really think that you're the villain.
Yes.
And people think, oh, if he can act like that, then there's a part of him that is that.
It's just fun.
I don't think it's true.
Yeah.
I don't think it's true. Anyway, so
Probably most people who play good villains are just like super nice people.
yeah, apparently the actor from Malfoy is apparently a super great dude from Harry Potter.
Oh yeah, it's like he and Emma Watson were best friends.
Yeah, and
well, he auditioned to be Harry Potter.
Did he?
Yeah, and then I think they were almost gonna pick him, and something happened that he ended up being.
What do you think? How do you think HBO is gonna do with the Harry Potter series?
Are they coming out with a series?
Yeah, they're doing a show and a season per book.
Oh.
And J.K. Rowling's behind it.
That's interesting. I don't know. I never read the books. I only saw the movies.
Really?
Yeah. Sorry, everybody who's listening.
Wow.
But the movies are sick.
Oh my
God.
So
people who have read the books are like, yeah, the movies are okay. But people who have only watched the movies, I'm like, oh, it's dope. That's Harry Potter. Harry Potter.
Yeah, dude. Dude, you got to read the books, man. The books. There's something. It's so interesting. I don't know many movies that are as good or better than the books.
Well, because you can't fit a book in a movie.
A, you can't fit, and B, I think there's something about your imagination.
Yes.
That just can't be replicated.
So I
tried. Harry Potter, what years were the Harry Potter movies made?
2000-ish.
Yeah. Think about how much better technology is now.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the CGI is not that bad. But also, like the original Spider-Mans, I think the CGI is not that bad. But I will say, it's easy. Like in the ideal way, you would read and then watch the movie. But like I was reading a bunch of Andy Weir books. I think that's how you say his name.
Okay.
He's like a sci-fi guy.
Okay.
So he wrote the Martian Matt Damon movie.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh.
And so I was trying to read.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, sick movie.
I watched it like 3 times actually.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, the potatoes, all great. I was trying to read The Martian because I was trying to get through his books because I read Artemis and then I was reading Project Hail Mary, whatever.
Oh, he did Artemis too.
Yeah. Cool. Artemis is the one. I don't know if they made a movie. It's like a girl.
Oh, but I know it's a famous. I know the name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. So I'm trying to read this book and imagine it all, but all I see is Matt Damon.
Yeah.
So I can't watch the movie and then read the book. It just doesn't work for me.
Right. It's going to be very difficult for everyone to get behind a new Harry Potter that isn't Daniel Radcliffe.
Mm-hmm.
But I really do believe that HBO has to go at it from a perspective of like they have to take that. I'm sure they're going to take that into account, like
Yeah,
how
but
what Marvel did with Spider-Man, with Tom Holland Spider-Man, right?
yeah, but that's because Spider-Man's so loved that they can make a million Spider-Man.
Yeah, but my point was that they just skimmed over, like, yeah, okay, got bit by a spider,
Oh,
long
right.
story,
Yes.
blah, blah, blah. Like,
Yes.
they could kind of do that with Harry Potter. Like, they could almost, like, acknowledge, like,
Yeah,
this.
skip the whole first movie
I know,
in a
skip the
way.
whole first movie, but they could start, they know the audience knows Harry Potter. So
Yes.
I think that you have a lot more to work with, and you could kind of be a lot more subtle with your writing. Did you watch Deadpool yet?
No, I might go see it this week with a friend of mine
You
in
should
the
go see it,
city.
dude.
But I keep seeing stuff online that's spoiling it.
So what you should do, I think it's really important to see the movie in theaters.
Yeah.
Because, or at least as soon as possible, because there's something about that experience of being in a room with 150 other people that are
Yes.
like hyped.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what Endgame was like or Infinity War was like in theaters?
I didn't see it in theaters, but I did see the seventh Harry Potter movie. There's 8, right? So I saw the seventh Harry Potter movie in IMAX,
Okay.
like right when it came out,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, it was crazy. Everyone's
Mhm.
like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, everyone
Awesome.
loses their mind, dude.
Yeah.
And there's something so special about that joint experience that I would say every movie I go to in theater, I give like 2 points higher on a scale from 1 to 10.
Yeah.
2 points higher just from that movie going experience because there's something so contagious and like incredible about like that shared experience.
But how do they fix the movie industry where it's so cheap and possible to make an awesome home theater at home?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you fix the movie going experience where it's like, dude, I want to bring my own food. Some places let you.
Yeah.
Sometimes the chairs aren't so comfortable. Sometimes there's like
Yeah.
a lady like sneezing.
Yeah. That's why Ari's not going to. That's why Ari's not going to see it now. Is like because the only AMC's near him are like gross.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like, I'm not going to go see it, but that's a shame. I. It's gonna revolutionize. It's gonna become. Um. It's gonna become. I think. The only thing I could think of is that it's got to become a really premier experience where like, it's like a whole activity, like
Like
food,
4D type.
4D. But even so, like I know that a lot of AMC's, for example, have dine-in now, where like you could order food and
They've
like
had that in West Orange, but it's really expensive
right.
and also not kosher.
So
And
they have to
whatever.
find. So they'll find. But I think they'll find ways to make it a more immersive, enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
That
They get
you
some
feel
merch
like
or
you're getting
whatever.
something out of going to the movies.
Yeah.
You know, and
Well, the sad truth now is that a lot of people. Well, one of it, obviously, you can't see the movie early enough unless you see it in theaters. That's a huge pull. But the second thing is people do stuff like how many Instagram museums are there in the city where people go and they pay to enter solely for cool Instagram pictures. Maybe that was a bigger thing
is that a thing? I didn't even know that.
10 years ago. Yeah, it's like you'll go because it's a place to take really cool pictures. There's like pink bubbles and mirrors and
Oh yeah.
right. And so how do you make a movie going experience to the point that people share it? Because if people share it, then you're more likely to go. Probably you can't, and people just talking about the movie makes you want to go see it.
Yeah, that's a huge part.
Yeah.
Um, that's a huge part. I don't know. I think, and the problem is that with the development of technology, we're becoming less and less community oriented.
Sucks.
And I think that we don't even realize to what extent we need that community experience.
Mhm.
Like, even the experience, I've had a lot of instances in my life where I've been like down or like having a hard time, and just a regular interaction with the mailman,
Yeah.
you know, just like saying hi as I'm going for a walk, and like he just like, you know, how you doing? And, like you just like, good, you know, what's going on? Watch the Yankee game, yeah. And, like you walk away, you feel better, right?
Yeah.
Or I went to going to a baseball game, and like you have that shared excitement of like, or that shared disappointment that your team losing, and
Mm-hmm.
like you look around and you're like, oh, what are you gonna do? You know,
Yeah.
like and it makes a huge difference, I think, in our well being. So I think that someone young, there's got to be someone that's going to come up with a way, if it does happen, to make it both technologically advanced and enticing and community oriented.
Well, that was a big issue with like any sort of VR headset, the Vision Pro, whatever. They're like, dude, you will never watch a movie in a more immersive way than with a
Yeah,
VR headset on it. And it's like, okay, cool. Can I
but
watch with anyone?
yeah,
No.
yeah. But that's what the Vegas Sphere is trying to do.
which is I heard it's crazy.
I went there. I went
Is it
there
crazy?
actually. So I went for one of like they basically what happens is they have a generic show called the Postcard from Planet Earth, which is the premise is that they send off, they find other planets that are capable of supporting life. They send a couple a male and a female off to repopulate or to check out the world,
Oh,
and
you can't
then
repopulate with two people, otherwise it would be siblings.
yeah, whatever it is, I don't know, but then included in that is like a memory because they're traveling in space for so IMAX theater,
Hmm.
which is a cool but not that incredible. But I've been watching videos on YouTube or on Twitter of like the Dead and Company playing in the Sphere,
I heard it. Yeah, it's
and they make
crazy.
that completely immersive, and like I could see that being like the next version of concert experience, movie going experience, where like you're with thousands of people, and a thousand people are completely immersed in the same incredible bubble, and
Yeah.
like I mean, you're watching this jam band, and you got to be on. Yeah, I mean, even if you're not on a lot of psychedelics, or a lot of drugs or whatever it is, just taking that all in is crazy
Well, my big critique, I haven't gone to so many concerts. Um,
in general
but
or
yeah,
recently.
in general. So, well, I think the guy who owns the Sphere is the same guy who owns
MSG,
MSG.
yeah,
Right. So I've been to Anderson Paak at MSG. I've been to Flume and FKJ and another EDM festival at Brooklyn Mirage. I'm trying to think where else I've been. But my issue is one, MSG, unless you had 6 seats, you're in GA or whatever it was, like we were kind of just in a chair. And so I'm watching this guy and I want to bump around, but like I'm just in a
yeah,
chair,
yeah,
which was weird.
yeah,
And then at the Brooklyn Mirage, Flume, I was right by the stage, was sick. But then this other guy, like I'm short, it's a huge crowd, it's flat floor. Like
yeah,
I'm watching the drummer through some guy's armpit,
yeah,
and it wasn't that good. And I was like, I'd rather a more intimate experience or something maybe more immersive.
yeah. Yeah, so at a certain point, I think that either we have to understand that part of the experience of being at one of these events is that, like, if I go to a concert or I go to a football game or I go to a basketball game, I know that I'm getting a better view or I'm getting a better
Like from
perspective
TV.
on the game if I was sitting home on my couch.
Yeah.
But I'm paying to have that shared experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess so. Yeah, you're right. The problem so I guess the problem is that our individual experience is not as good as it could be, but it's compensated for by that feeling of having gone with friends to see this band and to hear this song and to have a good time with them
Yeah, well,
and
my
do
issue
whatever
is my friends don't like the music I like, so I go.
by yourself.
It's been with like one friend each time,
Gotcha.
and that one friend has been like they like them, but not as much as
Yeah,
I do.
yeah, that's my entire life, dude.
Yeah.
With everything that I do, because everyone else that likes things I like are like
Well, you went to
60.
like the J Rad concert, right?
Yeah, I went with Yosef.
Yeah, and like he's like probably okay about it.
It was fine. It also was cold and rainy,
All right.
so we
Yeah.
left in like the second set, which I'm upset about because I found out that they played Born to Run
Thanks. You
as
tried
their
getting me to
encore.
bring Nicole
To what?
to that exact concert because I was looking for a date in the Jersey area, and you're like, oh, there's this J Rad concert, and I was like, she's not gonna care.
Yeah.
And I guess it was good we didn't go.
Yeah, it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
Although it is great. It's not for everyone. Um, that actually was one of the better concerts because that was a smaller venue. So is that? I mean, musicians feel it too, by the way, because I've read account after account after account of musicians saying they miss playing clubs and they miss playing, and comedians too.
But there's less money.
Yeah, there might be less money, but you get a real interaction with the audience. Like the Grateful Dead have said countless times that they feel that the audience is as much part of the show as they are, and
So is there an
so
opportunity there?
yeah. So if you're playing like they used to play, like they used to play free concerts in the park, or
Sick.
they'd play like someone would set up like in a warehouse. They just set up lights and they just play, right?
Sick.
And you have 250 or let's say even 400 people, but they're all squished into like the space and like everyone's kind of interacting with one another. And then in the 80s and 90s, they're playing in football stadiums. Um, they they don't interact with the audience the same way. Like how are you going to
How can you?
interact?
Yeah.
How can you? You know, so Jerry Garcia would intentionally play his own band at the same time while he was touring with the Grateful Dead, just to get that, just to get out that itch of
Yeah.
having that interaction with the audience. That I think a lot of that. So like, it goes both ways. I don't think it's a perfect system for the concert goer or the musician for a lot of it.
Well,
But
that's what I missed when I was in college. And this guy FKJ, who I don't know if you know who he is, he's
no,
like some French guy, makes awesome music. I don't think he was as big, and so he was playing these smaller venues in the city. And I
yeah,
was down in Rutgers, thinking like, oh, maybe I'll take a train to New York. Never did.
yeah,
Finally, I was living in New York. He was big, played a huge venue at the Brooklyn Mirage,
cool,
and I could barely see him.
right.
So that sucked.
Was it fun?
Uh, yeah, it was cool to see him. I mean, he does all his stuff
It's fun to
live.
go, right?
Yeah, well, he's also a unique musician where he will reproduce his tracks live because he plays every instrument. And so
Cool.
it's kind of like he has a loop going and then he'll jump,
Oh, you've told me
piano,
about this.
sax,
Yeah,
guitar.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, dude, he's awesome.
yeah.
Um,
That's crazy.
yeah,
People like that know, like, understand music. And when you understand the theory of how music is, you could, it's easily translatable to other instruments.
right.
That's my, like, I don't think like that.
I wish I did.
I
So
don't do
I had a question for you about this. So I think a lot about. I don't have any kids. You have a kid.
love kids.
Shout out, Munch. You love kids.
Yeah,
Like
dude.
how much?
So much, dude.
So much.
So many. I want so many kids, dude. I want to be able to afford them. I want so many kids.
Right. So here's my question. Looking back as an adult, there's all this stuff we want to do. I
Mhm.
always wanted to learn how to do a backflip in college. I learned how, landed on my head, whatever. It was a whole thing.
Really, what happened?
Well, I got 16 people together to buy a trampoline. We dropped it in these girls' house backyard. It was
Nice.
awesome. And then learned how to do a backflip for like a week. I was
Cool.
just like, throwing backflips on the trampoline until I messed one up,
Landed
landed
your
on my
head.
head. I was fine.
Here's your back, right?
Well, I ended up being fine, but just like then the fear, I
Yeah.
couldn't throw it back anymore. So whatever,
Yeah.
I had a good week of being able to do a backflip.
Yeah.
But there's this whole thing of you will never be able to learn something in the way that you did when you were a kid.
Yeah.
And it's like every year it gets worse. So when we lived in Israel for
There are
the
things you
year,
could do about it, by the way. There are
what,
things you could do to keep up your neuroplasticity.
but you can't. I mean,
I
at
mean,
this
you
point,
can't. It won't be to the same extent as when you're a kid, but there are things you could do to keep your
yeah.
to keep yourself relatively flexible. Yeah.
So then I'm interested in that. But my thought is always I would say, which is kind of lame, my biggest life regret is I took guitar for a year that year in Israel.
Mm.
We got back and it was like my parents were like, "Oh, do you still want to learn guitar? It's obviously way more expensive in America than in Israel." And I kind of felt guilty and I was like, "Nah, it's fine. Whatever." Gave it up.
How old are you?
I was entering 5th grade.
And they told you it was more expensive.
Well, they didn't tell me. Basically, we were paying 80 shek for an hour lesson from this guy in
So it's
Israel,
like
which
20
is
bucks,
barely
25
20
bucks.
bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Came back and it was like $35 for a half hour lesson.
Mm.
And so whatever, like it's
Yeah.
obviously way more expensive. And I was like, no, it's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
Biggest regret because I now play, if anything, less than I did in 4th grade
Yeah.
at a level. And you can't pick that up again. Like I was learning so fast in 4th grade. Could be that I had a teacher, could be who my teacher was. But my question to you is having a kid, do you, like people save up for college because of education, this and that. And my thought is, God willing, I have a kid one day. I want to save up as much money as possible to be able to fund any sort of lessons for anything because you can't learn that stuff again, really, as you're an adult.
Um, let's say that I agree with the premise that you can't learn stuff as an adult
Yeah.
for the sake of, just to not get sidetracked. So you're asking, like, how fiscally responsible you think you should be?
Or just, I guess, like, yeah, well, you have a kid, so what's your take on even like a language? I thought going to Israel for the year was insane.
Yeah, I'm speaking Hebrew to him. I'm speaking Hebrew to him. My Hebrew is not perfect, but to get him accustomed, or like he learns a lot faster, obviously, when he's younger.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. The way that I kind of I have felt about it was I kind of just want to encourage him to expose himself to as much as possible,
Right.
and to then decide what, based on what he's exposed to, what he wants to pursue.
But you need to have the funds to
So
let him dive in.
that's true to a certain extent, although I think that the ability to learn something yourself
especially in today's age.
in today's age and in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years from now is going to be so different.
Yeah.
It's not going to, you can't, like, even just the fact, and I'm not a good YouTube learner at all. I can't
Oh,
learn on
that's my whole
YouTube.
life is YouTube learning.
I can't learn on YouTube, dude. It's so hard. Like when I learned guitar, I got a guitar teacher.
Guitar is hard on YouTube, I found, specifically.
Well, in general, like even like learn, like if I was like trying to figure something out in college, and I'm like there's something about talking to someone
Yeah.
that I feel like I learned better from like having a actual correspondence with.
Yeah.
Um, I would think that by the time, I think in today's day and age, a kid could learn a lot at a very low cost.
Everything I know as far as graphic and video and photography, all YouTube.
Right. So that's
YouTube's
it.
dope. Yeah.
So that's it. My biggest concern is not things like that. My biggest concern is things like tuition. My biggest concern is things like, you know, buying, like just having more day-to-day bills. Like I didn't realize how much day-to-day bills add up until I got my own house. And without going on any trips or anything, I'm finding that I mean, like just to keep our house
Yeah.
stocked,
Very.
for two people, and then having guests over, on weekends, or to host a family member or anything like that, and to get a guest room ready, if someone wants to come, or just cleaning supplies, like everything adds up.
How many Costco runs a week do you do?
Well, I love Costco, so I go to because I work from home. I go to Costco to get out.
Yeah. Just to walk around.
So
Like, oh, lawn
yeah, like
chairs are on
if I
sale.
need if I need a case of water, I'll
Yeah.
go to Costco just for that one case of water, and I'll just walk around. Um, the bigger challenge about raising a kid, far more than what a monetary concern would be, is how you're going to raise a kid to be engaged in the real world,
Yeah.
and how to raise your kid to have his finger on the pulse of himself and the world around him, right? To be aware.
Well, here's my question for you, because in this whole new age, it's whack, I think, from a relationship standpoint, a friend standpoint, and a parent-child standpoint, where because we have smartphones, we're expected to be reachable all the time from
I'm
anywhere.
not going to expect that.
Right. So my question to you is, like, do you and Rachel have each other's location, stuff
We
like
don't.
that? Yeah. So Nicole and I also don't, because I'm like, dude, if you want to
But
be
I don't
somewhere,
care if she has my location.
right?
Like if she's like if she was like, can you share your location with me? I would do it. I don't
Oh yeah,
really
we
care.
do that. Like if I'm driving from somewhere, Nicole will be like, some of your location, so I can track you on your way home, just to make sure you're safe and whatever. But like it
Yeah.
used to be, you'd be out, and it's
And
just
you're out.
this
You're gone.
independence. Yeah,
You're gone. You're
Yeah,
gone. And they hope that you just and you hope that and you have to trust that your partner is going to be responsible and be home by X,
yeah.
Y,
Your
and Z amount
kid's
of
just
time.
like not gonna.
But by the way,
Yeah,
also at the end of the day, someone wants to not be available on their phone. They're not going to be available on their phone. Like,
exactly,
oh, guess what? I wasn't looking. I'm sorry.
exactly.
Like I know plenty of people that are in marriages or have kids or have plenty of things, plenty of responsibilities in their lives, where when they want to just not be, like, if they choose to not be present, like, they're not there.
But now we're in an age where you can be blamed for not being present because you have the tools,
Yeah, you could be. And
which sucks.
yeah, it does suck. I mean, it doesn't. It does suck. I think that, again, that is a little bit more of a symptom of what I would say would be a less healthy relationship. So, like, if you, I don't think that it would come up if you had a healthy relationship, like
Like
what we
it's
were
just
just
like
talking
answer when
about.
you want,
Yeah,
whatever.
or
Yeah.
like if Rachel like were to text me right now, like, and then I respond to her text in an hour because I'm recording this with you. Like, she would understand that. Like, listen, like,
Yes.
like this, I am who I think that a fundamental part of relationships is understanding that you guys are a team and two individuals, and part of what makes your relationship work is the fact that there's two individuals involved. And if you don't let that person be themselves, then there's nothing to share with, there's nothing to build with, there's no team to be had.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I always love thinking of my relationship as like we're a team, because it's basically all of the same foundations that a team would have. When she celebrates something, you celebrate something. If she has a bad day, then you're picking her up, and it's just everything that a team is. Everything you've learned from playing team sports your whole childhood. It's all those same principles. And then also my big pitch to anybody entering a relationship is you should feel like, let's say you in 20 years are exactly where you would have been had you not had influence from somebody else, let's say maybe negative influence from somebody else, where you shouldn't feel like your individual development is being hindered in any way from your relationship, but also then supported and a part of something. And how do you balance those two things where
That yeah, because people take that out of context with and it becomes a slippery slope. Like there's a difference between pursuing every whim that
yeah.
you have and saying, this is me, I'm in the mood to smoke a cherry right now. Like,
Yeah.
guess what, like your kid's crying and like it needs to take a diaper change. I don't give a crap what your whim is,
Yeah.
like you got to change a diaper, and then there's the things that are significant, like part like listen, I think it's really important to for my mental health, my well-being, to express myself. It doesn't have to be shared necessarily, right? But if I go a week without writing, without like kind of documenting my thoughts or coming up with some kind of story to tell or anything like that, I feel down. I
Yeah.
feel upset, and that hinders our
And then
relationship.
likely from there grows resentment and all that
Yeah,
sort of stuff.
yeah, definitely. And then so I think that you gotta understand what the difference is between someone being themselves and someone chasing a whim down. And there's certain times. Guess what? Part of being adult means or part of being responsible means not pursuing everything that you feel like in every minute that you do.
Yeah.
But part of being in a and being in a relationship means that you also got to give like there is someone else that you are sharing with, and that person has to exist in order for it to be a share.
I think somebody just sunk a pot.
Um, One of my, I mean, this happened. I mean, we could get into this. We could dive into the rabbit hole. But I had conversation with ultra orthodox person one time, and he's Hasidish, which is basically a sect of Judaism, and the foundation was very interesting. Where a lot of the Hasidic perspective came from was that a lot of Jews were regular, extremely hardworking, poor people, milkmen, blue collar people.
Yeah.
They would be peddlers, or they would be, they'd have like all these very difficult jobs, and they'd work like crazy hours, make no money, and at the time they did, and especially, I mean, forget about anti-Semitism, just put that completely aside for a minute, right? Just working hard, no money, big families, a lot of responsibilities. Judaism was getting forgotten and was dying on a daily basis.
Right, because something has to fall away.
Right, and so people didn't have the opportunity to keep up their knowledge of the tradition and keep up their knowledge of the laws and anything, or do any studying, and so there was a giant conflict that occurred, and it was what's more important to preserve, the relationship, the emotional aspect of Judaism, which is the singing, the loving God, the speaking to and then there's the actually following the letter of the law, and almost irregardless of how you feel about it, like it's more important to preserve the ideas, right? Because if it's everything is just touchy feely and everything's oh, I'm just spiritual and feel it, you lose a lot of the substance, and if you're only focused in the substance, you lose a lot of people because no one's interested in just being mechanical like that, right? So a lot of these Hasidic sects that started, they would their goal was to reignite the passion that people had for religion and God and life and Judaism in general, and that became the mission to reignite it. So. A group of them in particular, Chabad, which do incredible things, they consider themselves part of an army to help raise awareness, right? But when you're in an army, you're a soldier. Part of being a soldier, being in an army, means a loss of identity,
Yeah.
right? But that's part of why we conform. We shave our heads. Everyone looks the same. Everyone has the same cut. It's because you are conforming to a certain perspective, to a certain point. I mean, so so I was arguing with someone, and I said, if you were to drop dead, and they're talking about their relationship with God, and I was like, if you were to drop dead tomorrow and someone else took your place, would God notice any difference in who he was relating to? Like, what is there about you that makes your relationship to Judaism or to God or to whatever it is that you believe? What makes that special? What makes you that unique that someone else can't just come in, step in your shoes, and then and just fill it in, right? And he couldn't. And he didn't have an answer for me. But a lot of people have their relationships and their marriages and their lives like that, right? Where they're looking for someone to. Like, people are lonely, and that's kind of what pushes them to get into a relationship. But a lot of times you don't think about the fact that you have to have something of substance of who you are yourself to offer in that relationship, and if you say you're creative, great. How are you creative? You're creative and I'm creative. We're creative in totally different ways. The way that we manifest, the way that we feel like we're getting out that sense of wanting to put something out into the world and to share. You build, you're handy, like you're a lot more technical. I'm much more verbal. I'm much more
Yeah.
talking and much more, um, let's say, I'm much more language based, right? And those are two totally. So we are both creative, and just the way that we manifest it are different. But because you have what you have, and I have what I have, you and I have something to relate to one another with. Like, we have something to share with. We have something to talk about.
Yeah.
And then when we have a relationship, we have a friendship, there's a friend there, there's something there, and you need that in a healthy marriage. You need to have two people that are each themselves, that the other person's like, wow, like, there's someone I could work with and get along with.
Well, I think you were also talking about there's stuff that your wife does that you aspire to, and I'm sure there are things that you do maybe she feels better than she does that she aspires to.
Sure.
And that's also a cool thing where there are so many things that Nicole does where it's an inspiration plus like a bar that she has set that I try to reach
Mm-hmm.
as far as ways to treat each other and interact and do all
Totally.
these certain things, which is cool.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And then another thing is that I think that to be conscious, to encourage people to be themselves,
Yeah.
and to encourage it. Like, when Rachel and I got married, she got an undergrad. She had a bachelor's in psychology. She didn't really know what she wanted to do with it. She was thinking of PA school. She wasn't sure. And I just told her, try out anything. Like, I don't care what you do. I don't care how long you do it. Try it. Be yourself. I'll help support you.
Yeah.
If you want to go to school, great. If you want to work. I want you to do what you want to do. In the past, I've been a lot more possessive about my. I was much more mature. It was my way or the highway. My perspective, or that was it. Like, you're wrong. And I realized that I don't want to being in a relationship with yourself, whether it's your friends or whether it's your spouse or whether it's your kids. A lot of people push other people to be like them. It's not a relationship. That's you being controlling. You want to encourage people to be themselves, and if that's someone you can work with, great. And if not, then yeah.
Well, also, even if you succeed in getting these other people to be like you, it's not going to be for the right reasons and they're not going to get there on their own.
Yeah,
Where
that's a big problem too.
this was a whole take that I had. Nicole's in PA school. PA school, I'll tell you, is like dumb
Tough.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so would you rather be no matter what happens, like she's applying to PA school. She's gonna get in or she's not. She's in PA school, she's gonna stick it through or she's gonna drop out. And kind of no matter how you interact, that stuff is gonna happen one way or another. And so would you rather be the person telling her like, you're right, maybe it's just too hard, maybe you shouldn't do it. I think that you're better off not. Or would you and then she drops out and then it's like, oh, you were right all along and you get to say I told you so. And then so she failed and then you rub it in her face.
No, you
Or
create, but that's the least healthy way to go about
that's what I'm
anything,
saying.
dude.
Or you can just support. What's going to happen is going to happen anyway. And then if they succeed, you get to be like, I always knew you could. And if they fail, it's like, then you're there for them.
So I think that,
And it's better
yeah,
to be
I think everyone has different
supportive than to
levels.
be right, basically.
It's definitely more important to be supportive than right. I think that as you get to know someone, you could kind of have an idea as to like what their skills are, what their strengths are or not, and you could say like, listen, I know you, I know it's not easy, but I think you got it, you
I would
know.
never tell somebody that they can't do something. I think it's also
No,
foolish.
but if someone told you I want to quit and it's not
Oh,
their strength,
yeah,
then you could say, listen, if that's not for you, I totally get it. Like, there are a
yeah.
lot of things I've tried that aren't for me. It's just not. By the way, I think that someone called in the middle because we're starting at 23 minutes now.
Oh, that's okay.
But yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true. I don't know if it's helpful or not, but what I like to do if somebody, well, I'll just use Nicole as an example. If she's saying she can't do something, because I know her and I've been around long enough to see her do certain things, I can rattle off like, oh, but you did this, you did this, you did this.
Yeah.
Those were harder than what you're doing right now, and
Sure.
so you totally can.
What percent of the time is she looking for, like, to get out, just like, oh, it's so hard, I can't do this? How many times does she actually need, like, those words of inspiration?
I would say majority of the time she's just looking to vent, and I've learned mostly to just listen.
Yeah.
But then there are sometimes she'll call me before tests and say, "Let me get a pep talk,"
Yeah.
or like, yeah, you just ask. I mean,
It's good to know, by the way.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's really good to know what the difference is. It's really good. It's really good to know what the person's looking for. Hey. Oh no! Oh no! What's the matter? What's him truly? Yeah. No. But yeah, it's definitely super important to know what they're looking for, because a lot, like,
Yes.
even recently, if I've been stressed out about my mortgage, right? Just going through the process of getting it.
Welcome to adulthood. That
And
sucks.
yeah, and then Rachel's like, "Oh, you got this." Like, I don't want to hear I got it.
Yeah.
I know, whatever happens. I know, but like, I'm just stressed out right now. Like, I gotta figure out a way to blow off some steam or to get past it. But
Something that's so nice about being in a relationship is that if you have somebody who's in your corner who, when you're amped about something, they meet you on that level and they're amped too. And then when you're upset about something, sometimes I'll call Nicole and I'll say, like, this thing happened. And before I can even put into words my own frustration, she'll go off and be like, that sucks, this and that. Why couldn't it be this way? Whatever. And I'm like, oh, this is dope because I can sit back and
Yeah.
have somebody else fetch for me.
Yeah. Does it help you?
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's just like, you get it, you feel understood and validated. And it's like, I don't need to complain. I just want to have somebody tell me, like,
But there's sometimes where actually saying the words gets it off it off your chest.
for
in an
sure.
important
But it's
way.
nice for somebody to be like, you're frustrated and you're completely valid in feeling that way.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, sick.
Yeah.
Like, done.
Yeah. It's great. It's great. Yeah. So I think the same thing applies to kids, where, I mean, I think it's really important. I think that by the time this guy is up to learning something, it comes down way more to how encouraged is he to try new things. I have a very low base. Like, I'll try something, and then as soon as, I've been working very hard on it, but as
If you
soon as
feel
it gets hard, I
friction,
quit.
yeah.
And I go, okay, I can't do this. I get overwhelmed with many steps to a task.
Maybe that's a big difference in when we were younger versus now. Now you can just choose when to quit, when to do whatever. There's nobody basically holding you accountable.
Right.
And when you're a kid, and that's why I was saying I did computer science in college because I knew I never would otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
You're not allowed to quit. Like, you're in school, you're taking these subjects. Like, you will learn whether you want to or not. You're doing gym whether you want to or not. Your parents are going to put you on a team. You're playing soccer. You're doing this, and it's like, you want to
And
quit.
kids need that to a certain extent.
Sucks. Yeah.
But if you wanna, but I think that you could instill in a kid an attitude or perspective of wanting to try new things and being overall excited about life and the world around you.
Life floats.
Bye, dude.
Place to place.
See you later. So, for example, like, I heard stories about people. For example, a dad that would give his daughter $20 every time she failed at a new activity. And he rewired her brain to try new things and to say it's okay that, whether it worked or not, like, to just be open to doing new things, and that it's actually a rewarding experience, not negative.
I wanted to talk to you actually because teaching, and I'm starting teaching in September. My mentality.
It's gonna be awesome, dude.
I'm excited. And a big thought of mine, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship, and people, I'm sure you have people in your life that'll say, oh, Effie, you're so creative. I'm not creative. How do you do it? And blah, blah, blah. And I think, yes, fine. Like, you probably have an itch that you need to express this creativity and that some people don't have. And so they don't feel like they have to do it. But my opinion is that anybody could do something creative. It's all about just putting effort into it.
Yes,
Like,
it's a muscle.
yeah. And so with my proposal to Nicole, I painted a bunch of stuff. I don't paint, but I figured out a way, whatever. I used a projector and kind of cheated it and stuff.
It works.
Yeah. And it, like, how you going to get better? Just do it. And that's where YouTube's so cool. You just learn it.
Mm-hmm.
And so something I want to show the kids in class is, like, do it, fail, do it, fail, do it, fail.
Yeah,
Like,
very important. But here's the important thing. It's a very difficult line, especially for kids in high school. kids in high school are used to to either doing something well or not, and like
Yes.
if it's not done, it's bad,
Yeah.
and if it is done, it's good, and then if it's not done and it's not bad, then they think you're a pushover. So, for
Right.
example, right, if I tell my kid, if a student hands in, if I tell them to write a poem, right, or to what I do is it's a ton of fun. I play a score or just a musical soundtrack for a couple minutes, and I have them write, listen to it and write the story that the music is creating in their head.
Cool. That's
Um,
like they used to have like the animals running around and there'd be a score over it, and you kind of can see how there's a story arc.
Right, right. So, but without any kind of visual prompt,
Right.
and then what I would also do is make sure that they never knew what movie that score is from,
Nice.
so that they can't associate it with that movie. So, for example, a lot of them hadn't seen the movie Hook, with Robin Williams,
Great
but
movie.
great movie, and it was scored by John Williams, who is one of the greatest, right? So, this got this incredible score, and it's a ton of fun, and there's like, let's say like 6 or 7 different great individual score pieces. Um, that are 3 or 4 minutes apiece, and so I'll play it, and then I'll say, now what did that music make you think of? Put in as much details as you possible and tell me as much as you can. And anyone that does essentially does anything gets an A,
Yes.
And so the student's like, oh, Mr. Hirschman's so easy because he gives me an A, right? And like the point isn't that I'm trying to be easy. The point is that I'm trying to get you to practice flexing these creative muscles, and I see that you're doing it. And then as the year goes on, I'll actually grade you based on what I know that you could do or can't do. So,
Which
for
is a big
example,
deal.
well, it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the kid will be like, "Hey, why'd I get a B? I just did this assignment last week. I got an A." I'm like, "Yeah, because I saw what you were able to do last week, and I know that you
Bar
didn't.
above.
Yeah, I know that you could do better than this." And so I think that first of all, t- for students to get that, you have to put a lot of effort into understanding each individual student, which a lot of teachers aren't willing to do. It's really hard to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
It's
I'm sure
hard.
you get it's similar to the medical field where you just kind of you stop having compassion. In teaching, it's like, dude, you get it right or you don't.
Yeah. It's why it's so important that you're teaching because you want to teach, not because it's a job.
Well, I didn't have a passion for teaching, but I have an opinion.
But wait till you start, dude. You're gonna love it.
Right, that's what I'm hoping. And I have friends and family that through high school, luckily enough, I was in high tracks and teachers and people kind of told me like, "Oh, you're going to go far in life." And where am I now? Not really far in life.
Now you're doing
But
it, dude.
yeah, like it is what it is, but I have family and friends who were kind of always told, "You're dumb, you're in the low tracks, learning disability, you should have low expectations for yourself." And they've accomplished far more than school ever thought they could. And why would you ever tell a kid,
It's so stupid,
what
dude.
is
It
that?
it, it, dri- it drives me nuts. And also, I've found because I've taught all 3 tracks. I taught basics, regular, and
Yeah.
honors. There's very maybe 10% of the kids in basic class are less intelligent.
There's
If
also
that, it's
there's
that they have a hard time sitting.
yes.
And guess what? You're gonna stick a kid from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Sucks.
in a classroom and be like, you have to sit still and then, oh, you can't, you're dumb. What the heck is that? I
Plus
mean,
teachers that are like, you need to ask to go to the bathroom.
yeah, by the way, I don't do that either.
What is that?
Like, you wanna go to the bathroom? I think someone raised their hand, can I go to the bathroom? Like, yeah.
Dude, do you remember in high school where you'd be gone for like 20 minutes and the teacher roasts you when you come back and you're like, dude, I'm in class all day. I had to poop.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna make me tell the whole class right now I'm a 14-year-old boy that I had to poop? Like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Yeah,
Number one way
definitely.
to just lose respect and trust with
Yeah,
your
we have
teacher.
to, kids are so much smarter than we think they are.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they're so much smarter in so many different ways than we're capable of keeping track of. The hardest thing is taking a kid that's been told his whole life,
You suck.
you're stupid, you're dumb, you're in a lower class, and be like, dude, you are not dumb by any stretch of the imagination. Like, if you can like, I was reading these, the Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life with this basic class.
Yeah.
That book is hard for any adult to make his way through. And these kids are doing it. And
I feel like if you tell a kid it's easy, they'll just believe it is.
yeah, and kids learn really well, and kids are really smart. And if now some kids learned better in different ways. Some kids I needed to have a conversation with discussing the material as opposed to having them sit and read a book for 45 minutes. But I don't care. But they're getting it and they're applying it to their lives, and it's making a difference, and they're learning exactly what they need to learn. And they could understand it, they could comprehend it, they could say it back to me, they could articulate it, they could speak publicly in front of
That's big.
10, 15, 20 other kids, and for 5 minutes
Speaking
and
in
make
front
a
of your
point.
class is also way harder than speaking in front of strangers, I think.
Yeah, because you have friends and you're
Yeah,
you're
you're
nervous and
nervous.
you're
Yeah.
gonna, um, and all you have to do is just. I think that people in general, not just kids, if you set the bar high in what you expect of people, and you really believe that they can do it, a lot of time, most of the time, I really believe that they'll live. They'll sense that you have faith in them in a certain degree, that they'll step up to it. You know,
Well, also reaching below but close to a high bar is much better than
exceeding a low bar.
yeah.
Yeah.
Here's something that's so interesting is if you look just as an example, skateboarding as a
Mhm.
sport, they used to think like the kickflip is impossible.
Oh,
You broke.
oh, no, we're good. Yeah.
Like they thought the kickflip's impossible. It can't be done. Ooh, my computer's gonna die. And then this guy Rodney Mullen invented it. And then like other adults, pro skateboarders couldn't do it. If you look at any freaking 10-year-old skateboarder now, they can kickflip. Everyone can do it.
Yeah.
And it's like if you show a kid, yo, like this is possible, tons of people are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're not special, all these not special people are doing this stuff. Like
Right. But so the harder thing in that case, by the way, is coming up with something novel.
yeah,
Like and
you don't have to.
units from guitar, right? Some of the most famous riffs are really simple to play. It's
Yeah.
just actually coming up with the riff that's really hard to do. But then you have like, let's say a 25-year-old at the peak of their creativity and their brains developed, and they're practicing, they're playing guitar for 15, 20 years, and they come up with this incredible riff, and like they just pulled it out of like the depths of their consciousness, and they were working so hard to find the perfect riff to start. And the next day, a 5-year-old is like dun dun dun
Yeah.
dun 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 dun,
Well,
and you're like, oh man, because the hardest part of that is probably the novelty of creating that new move.
you know the book Steal Like an Artist?
Mm, I've heard about it. I haven't read it.
It's essentially you are allowed to pull from anyone and any artist that you want and then curate it into your own style. And the way that you'll develop your own style is by taking pieces from other people.
Yeah,
Eventually, maybe you'll come up with something novel. But I always think about creativity and taste and style as just you are a curator in your own
sense, sure.
sense. Right. And so you shouldn't feel like everything you do has to be novel and unique. And obviously, there's a line between ripping someone off and doing a little bit of a riff. But the way to be inspired, I think, is you'll imitate pieces that you like, and then
Sure.
something new will come out of it,
Yeah.
maybe unintentional.
One of the things I started doing towards the end of as the year went on with my class was, we'd do these creative writing assignments, and I'd have kids write what stuck out to them that other people wrote.
Mhm.
So let's say someone was reading their poem, and I'd ask another kid next to him, okay, what are the phrases or expressions that jumped out at you? Now you have to incorporate that into your next poem, because you wouldn't have thought of that necessarily until you heard it. But now that you heard it, meld it, use it. Like that part. There is a huge part of creativity that comes from exposure to other things that people or ideas or things in the industry. Stealing like an artist is definitely a huge part of it.
Yes, that's a cool book. This died. I just don't want it to get too wet, so I'm just gonna put it in my shirt.
Okay, you can also put it away. I don't think we're using it, right?
Nah,
Okay.
I don't know if it's.
But yeah. So have you, so since you stopped going to the woodwork shop, how have you been getting your creative outlets?
It's been slow. I'm trying to think what I've even been working on. Well, I mean, I had the proposal that was July 4th, so about a month ago.
Yeah.
Since then, I was in Seattle for a while, so nothing really too crazy actually that's been going on lately.
Are
But
you itching to like build something or like?
so yeah,
Yeah.
itching, yeah, and that's also tough if I'm in the city or I'm here, whatever it is. Like I want to go back, get some power tools. I'd love to just have my own studio, but that might be a money pit. So
Yeah.
figure it out.
Well, hopefully if this house works too. You'll help me spray paint the garage door.
Yeah, which is fun.
My house, dude.
Yeah,
That'd be a fun job.
that's
You
the
can do
thing
whatever you
too.
want, dude. For the
Is
house.
like maybe one person might freehand an entire mural on the side of the house, but somebody else will just use a projector. And the cool thing, which is probably a metaphor for life, is when I was painting these photos by tracing the projector onto the panel,
Mm-hmm.
when you're super up close, you're like, I'm not in the lines. It's all imperfect,
But you
whatever.
take a step back.
Yeah,
And
you
it's
take a step
crazy.
back. You're like, dude, this is sick.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you paint a mural on the side of your house. Like, that's huge. And you're up close and you're like, oh, it's a little wiggly. You take a step back and it's beautiful.
I've found that dealing with most of life, the times that I've navigated life successfully, has been knowing when to look at a moment up close or when to take a look at a moment as a step back.
It's deep.
Like most of our fights, like I say, if Rachel and I get in a fight,
Yeah.
in the past, in my other relationships, I would have just, it eats at me. And I would have just had to keep it going or like gotten it resolved or like
Yeah.
not let it go, and until like I felt like, something got out of it. And now it's so like, I just think to myself, like, am I gonna remember this? Are we gonna care about this? Like, is this worth putting a strain on? Like, I don't care enough. Like, it's
I
and
also,
you take a step back. You're like, it's okay. It's not worth it.
yeah. I think it's probably twofold. One, that you grow, and two, that you trust the other person more. Like, the deeper into a relationship you go, you become hopefully a better person. And then also there's this realization when you start out in a relationship, you're kind of testing each other if this is right or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then you cross that line, or at least I did, where you're like, kind of no matter what, I'm committed. This is it. We're the team. We're gonna
Yeah.
get it done. And so if you have a disagreement, it's much less like, oh no, what if we're not right for each other? And it's like, all right, like,
Yeah, you
we're
got to
still
figure it out.
together.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, of
like,
course. The way that someone put it to me was like two like two sports players that are trying to win a championship, right?
yeah,
Like they might disagree on like they might get into like a squabble or might have like a fight or whatever on an individual level, but they're trying to win a championship, and that's going to come above it, and that's going to come above any kind of like. Now obviously there are certain spats that you can't get past, and there's certain foundational things or fundamental things that are just too important to compromise on, and I totally get that. But that's something that you have to consider, before you start or before you get too into it. All right, dude. Should we wrap this up for now?
yeah, we can wrap it up.
All right, dude. This might be the longest one we did so far.
Yeah. Well, usually if you have any podcasts, you ask your guests if they have anything new, anything they want to shout out.
Do I?
Yeah.
Oh, do you have anything new? Anything you want to shout out to all 6 listeners?
Yeah. I just want to say if he's a great guy.
Koala
And,
boards.
yeah. If you guys want to check out Mendelow Studio at mendelow.studio.
And then what's included there? Koala boards. What else?
Yeah. Well, we got koala boards. I have a cutting board. If you have like a wooden cutting board, there's an oiling tool. I'm not trying to sell it, but it's cool.
Yeah.
And just various things you can explore. And
Pine cone Slurpee.
oh yeah, Pine with Slurpee. Yeah, I have a YouTube channel, and if nothing else, I just want you to see like people. I feel like it's weird to say I have a YouTube channel because people think maybe you want to be an influencer, but it's more so do the things that you find fun,
Mm-hmm.
and then if success comes, it will. Where,
Right.
dude, like I have maybe 80 subscribers, but I love making these videos,
That's awesome, dude.
and so I'm just
80
itching-
subscribers is plenty, by the way.
Yeah,
to start,
which, yeah,
for sure.
awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like that's what was always my thought in doing software engineering, where I'm like, I don't love doing this, and therefore I don't think I'm going to go far. And that's, I mean, I didn't, that whole saying of do what you love and maybe success will find you.
I think it will,
That's what I'm hoping
because I
for.
think that I think most of life comes down to whether how long you're willing to fight for something or not. And so the question becomes, are you going to get burnt out, or whether you'll make it by the time you finish fighting, and how much you have in you to keep on going. But
Yeah.
I'm excited for you to start teaching. I think it's going to be awesome. I think you're going to love it.
My number one goal is going to be to give the kids confidence. And I think if you have that, especially as an entrepreneur, really in life, that's all you need. Because
Yeah.
if you fail, but you're confident, you're like, oh, but like, whatever, you take it on the chin and you're like, I'll succeed next time.
Yeah.
As opposed to the kids who are always told you are a failure and they're like, oh, it's only reinforcing that.
So sad, dude. It
Yeah.
really it breaks my heart. Yeah, we need more good teachers.
Hopefully I'll be that. Or I'll show up and the kids will sense weakness and that I'm a
Nah,
little bit more...
dude, they'd be intimidated by your beard.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure,
My
dude.
first demo class I taught at SAR, this kid in the front row was like, sick fit, bro. I'm like, thanks, bro. He's like a
Yeah.
little ninth grader.
What do you
He's like, I
call
like the
it?
beard.
I like to be a little intimidating. I'm intimidating at the beginning of the year, like I'm
And then
no
ease up.
nonsense, and then I ease up.
I think that's the way to go.
But everyone's always dude to me, and I always respond to dude. So like I walk in there like, hey dude, and they're like, hey dude.
Well, after this weekend, because I was with Nicole by my mom,
Yeah.
and I was like, Mom, I feel like you're gonna tell me after the weekend that you don't like the way I talk to Nicole. And she's like, No, I think it helps because you call me dude and you call me bro, and it's good to see that you call her that too. So it's not just me. It's not a disrespect thing. It's
Yeah,
just how you
that's right.
talk.
That's right.
I'm
So
like,
funny.
yeah, dude.
Yeah, dude. Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, dude. Well, we'll call it for now. We'll get you back on.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.